Welcome to the Good Divorce Show, where we can help you learn how to navigate the journey of divorce with less conflict, less debt, and equip you not to just get divorced, but also learn how to be divorced. Your host, certified divorce coach Karen McNenny, shares her wealth of knowledge, gets advice from other relationship experts, and interviews couples who learn how to have a good divorce, so you can too. Now here's your host, Karen.
Hello and welcome to the Good Divorce Show. I am your good divorce coach, Karen McNenny. Have you been wondering how to navigate those teen years across two homes when they're having their own emancipation journey? They're pushing against each parent, not just you individually, or wondering about how they might be navigating their own adolescent traumas, if you will, as they navigate the different styles of their parenting? Well, all of these questions and more, we're going to visit today as we chat with Jennifer Delliquadri. She is a certified life coach, purpose-driven mentor, and founder of Subtle Shifts. She has a background in psychology, education, and trauma-informed practices. She specializes in helping women in midlife navigate burnout, people-pleasing, and unfulfilled lives to create more joy and balance. Jennifer is also passionate about guiding women through personal transformations, empowering them to reconnect with their feminine power and embrace meaningful change. And when she's not coaching, you will find Jennifer out exploring the Northwest with her family and dogs. Welcome to the show, Jennifer.
Thank you for having me, Karen. I am really looking forward to having this conversation with you.
And to our gentlemen listeners, please don't tune out, because although Jennifer has a female focus in her private practice, we will be talking about things that apply to both parents, regardless of gender, regardless of if you are in a same-sex marriage or a heterosexual marriage, or however your family has been crafted. We're going to talk about those kiddos today and put them at the center of our story. I want to actually dive in right off the bat with your thoughts around the very essence of divorce living is this family that lives across two homes. And you and I both identified we have neurodivergent kids, but even those who maybe fit more within the normal spectrum of behaviors and needs educationally and personally, moving from home to home between two different parenting styles certainly can take its toll on kids, if not done well. So what kinds of things should we be paying attention to for our adolescent members who are becoming a little more autonomous? They drive, they've got opinions, they want certain things in a certain place on a certain day.
This is a really hectic time of parenting. And I know you understand this. I understand this. You think you got it all figured out when they're young kids, and then they hit adolescence and it's like, oh, none of the things that I was doing before work anymore. They're not interested in the rules. They are not interested in doing what I want them to do. And that's all very normal. When you throw in two different households with potentially two different parenting styles, likely two different parenting styles, it can feel like there's a really big disconnect, especially when teenagers, as they are a little bit more independent. And so when I have clients come to me and they have two different homes, one of the biggest challenges that my clients have is that the other household is not running the way that theirs is.
Right?
Yeah. The rules are different.
To be expected. Two independent people who maybe were not great roommates as a married couple now are living more autonomously in their own style. And those styles might be really different for the kids.
Yeah, exactly. And so when the women that I work with come to me and they're having that challenge, their tendency when this first starts to happen, or when they're really noticing this, is to feel like it's out of their control. And that feels very hard for them to manage. And their perspective is, something's not working. I have a lack of control for whatever percentage of the time. There's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
Which is in theory true, because while they are at the other person's house, you're not there, right?
Mm.
But there is a big difference between I have no control over that and having that be the focus, and I have a lot of control over what I choose to do and how I choose to think about it and how I choose to show up for my children throughout this process.
Hmm. Well, yes, I think this idea of I can't control what's going on there. What can I control is my reaction, my thought process, where I'm ruminating and dwelling, where it's not helpful. Continue with your thinking here.
Yeah. So the tendency, if they're following that train of thought, is I don't have control, is they will try to control the other house and say, well, we need to have the same rules. We need to have the same structures and routine because this is what our kid needs. We need it to be the same. And that is where a lot of conflict happens. There's a power struggle. You can't tell
Yes.
me what to do. This is not how I want to do things. It's going to inevitably end up in some type of conflict or disharmony. So instead of having the goal be that both homes are the same, to allow them to be harmonious. So they don't
Mm,
have to be exactly the same in order to complement each other. In fact, sometimes having them be a little bit different can complement the other. And the other idea, too, is to keep in mind that the perspective, when you're thinking both homes need to be the same, and if they're not, my child will struggle. But the truth is that kids are resilient. And you think about when they go to school every day, depending on what type of
yeah.
school system they're in, of course, they have different teachers. They have different classes. Each teacher has their own set of routines, set of rules, set of homework. And then they go to another class. There's another set of rules, another set of expectations and routines and homework. And through it all, they learn how to navigate. They know what's expected of them in each class.
That's right.
And that's a good thing because they're learning how to adapt to each environment. And that doesn't mean that math class is taking away from the experience of English class. They can very much feed into each other. And if you know how to show up in math class with a teacher who has these certain expectations and also show up in English class and find a harmony in a teacher who has
Mhm.
these same expectations, it's separate completely, it helps you become more adaptable, more resilient.
Mhm.
And so a perspective of seeing this is if we can work in harmony, it doesn't mean we have to be the same. In fact, when we are all operating from our value systems for our own expectations and needs and having our needs met in our own separate environments,
Mm.
it ultimately could potentially really make your child's experience all the better.
Oh, I think this is such a gift to our listeners who really I see with clients such a big challenge of releasing, like, I don't know what they're having for breakfast now. I don't know what. And there's a big leap of faith with your co-parent, and not all of us. I know I have an extraordinary co-parent, and I trust him implicitly, and I know the kind of experience he's having with our children, or that our children are having in his home, as well as our home here where I'm sitting today. However, this metaphor of the school, I love that, different teachers are going to have different things going on in their own classroom and their own style, but we all have the same bell schedule. We take lunch at the same time. We start at the same time. And it seems that some consistencies I would call around, sleep hygiene, expectations of homework. Do we do chores? Some of those things that where we don't want as kids, like, well, I don't have to mow the lawn at my, well, how come you're making me do dishes or, well, I just get $50 every week from my other parent. Where can we find, the places where maybe harmony is on our side? I like this. Style is going to be different for
Yeah.
sure. But where can consistency support these adolescent brains?
Absolutely. Things like nutrition and sleep hygiene and making sure that those basic needs are met are at the basis of raising a healthy child.
Mm-hmm.
And when there's a disconnect, I do have clients who, when their child is at the other person's house, the rules around sleep are a little bit more loosey-goosey. and the rules around how clean the room needs to be aren't as structured. And that can make it really challenging because when their teenager comes back, it's like starting from scratch, right? They've been at this other house where they don't have to do anything. And then they come home and it's like, why do I have so many rules here? So yes, if there is some disharmony that's being caused, that's a notification that something needs to be addressed. One of the most impactful tools that anyone can have is an ability to communicate effectively and being able to express your needs to whoever it is that you're talking to, whether it's your child or your ex-spouse.
Yeah.
Being able to share your thoughts, your concerns, and your needs in an effective way so that they can hear what you're saying.
This idea, and maybe I'm going to take a quick little detour because I want you to share a little more with our listeners about the work that you do and the podcast resource that you have out there before we go into this, how to talk to teenagers so they listen, because I can tell that's sort of what we're teeing up. So give us another quick overview, which I like to sprinkle in for those that are bopping in and out of our podcast today, of who your clients are and what you provide to them.
Yeah, so the people that I work with are women in midlife who are wanting something better for themselves, something different for themselves. So many of the people who come to me are either at the very beginning of a transition, and there's all kinds of transitions. It could be relationship transition, it could be health transition, career transition, life transition, maybe a move. They're either at the very beginning of it, knowing what's coming, or they're before they even know it's happening, but they're at a dissatisfaction stage.
Yeah.
So they're recognizing that what is happening is not what they want. And they're wanting to do something about it, but they're not really sure how to do it or what to do. So that the ultimate outcome that they are after, whether they know what it is or not, is more likely to come to fruition with more ease and grace.
Beautiful. And prior to your podcast, Subtle Shifts, sort of coming into existence recently, it was another platform. And tell us a little bit about what's in Evergreen, if you will, in the archives.
Yeah. I had a podcast called Raising Happy Teens for 3 years and over 150 episodes.
Yeah.
My former niche, you could call it, was working with teenagers and parents of teenagers and helping them have a more harmonious relationship through adolescence. Because as I mentioned at the beginning, there's a lot of ups and downs at that phase for parents and for teenagers. And so for the first iteration of my podcast, I talk about all things raising teenagers, all things. And that is still there. And at present, I still coach on these things because midlife, you still have your teenagers, you still have transitions, right? You're maybe sending them off to college. You might have preteens. There's a big spectrum. I still talk about parenting because for most of my listeners, they are parents and they want to have a good relationship with their child, especially as they transition into adulthood. So yes, the first 3 years of my podcast, all those episodes are still there and they are still completely relevant. But as I started to transition into the mom of young adults, I wanted to talk about more things. And that was what the evolution was about.
Yep. So raising happy teens, and I'm picking that part of Jennifer's brain today as we consider adolescence and the divorce experience. I think we often underestimate the impact of divorce, and sometimes we get a little too soft on kids are resilient, they'll bounce back, not a big deal. It's a really damn big deal, folks. It's a trauma. Divorce shows up on the ACEs scoring, adverse childhood experiences, right up there with death of a parent, abuse, loss, and trauma and the nervous system kind of dance together. And I would like you to unpack that a little bit through your trauma-informed training and what we should be thinking about and looking for and how we can better soothe and support that nervous system regulation for teenagers who are navigating maybe a high conflict divorce of their parents, or maybe just a really peaceful divorce, but again, big transition.
Exactly. One of the most important things that I tell my audience over and over and over is that if you want to help your teenager, you start by doing the work yourself. And so when that comes to trauma and having a big life transition, it makes sense that it would impact you. And through the lens of trauma, it's dealing with the mind-body connection. So your mind impacts your body holds on to that experience, and it's going to come out. Whether an illness or injury or, tight shoulders, whatever, your body holds on to it. But to go back to the idea is that if you really want to support your child through this, you also need to support yourself through this and learn how to access emotional regulation, even though you are going through this really challenging experience. If you know how to do it in yourself, you'll be more likely to be fully present for your child as they navigate it as well.
Before we head into our break, I'm wondering if you could just share like a really practical tool, something you would do with your clients of this is a way you can regulate that nervous system. This is how we emotionally regulate ourselves, especially when we're triggered.
Yeah. There is something called bilateral stimulation, and there is a physical movement that you can do to help ground yourself and regulate your nervous system when you're feeling heightened emotionally. And it's called the butterfly tap. So basically what you do is you give yourself like a gentle hug where your right hand is on your left arm, your left hand is on your right. And just kind of like a little hug, just gentle, not super tight. And then you just alternatively tap each arm with the opposite hand. And then as you're doing that, it's signaling to your brain. It's like making your brain work right and left hemispheres. It's also helping you stay grounded in the present moment, bring you back to your body. And while you're doing that, you can also slow down your breathing, take a few long, slow, deep breaths before proceeding. So that's a really simple strategy that can help you just kind of feel a little more grounded in the moment.
I hope that you, listener, just like me, just gave yourself a hug. Unless you're driving, then please don't. But these practical tools are so helpful. And if you're just listening, right, take that in. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see Jennifer and I hugging ourselves as we do that, in that right left hemisphere body alternating, breathing as you do it. And is it a thing that you got to do for an hour or for 30 minutes in order for it to make a difference?
I like to say do it until you feel a shift. Just any kind of shift. It might be micrometers, but you feel a little different.
Beautiful. Well, stay with us, listeners. We are chatting today with Jennifer Delliquadri, who's certified life coach, purpose-driven mentor, and founder of Subtle Shifts, also an expert in raising happy teens. We're going to come back after the break and chat a little bit more about being the non-reactive parent as we raise these teenagers who just seem to figure out how to push our buttons. We're also going to talk a bit more about the transition of divorce for ourselves personally. So stay tuned.
Are you thinking about getting divorced? Before you call a lawyer, call the Good Divorce Coach, Karen McNenny, a certified divorce counselor, co-parenting specialist, and mediator. Karen's signature Good Divorce experience will guide you through your divorce journey, from the day you make that difficult decision to the day the decree is signed, all for a predictable fee. The Good Divorce Coach will teach you and your partner how to get divorced and be divorced with less conflict and less debt. Visit thegooddivorcecoach.com to get in touch with Karen.
Now, back to the show with Karen.
Hello and welcome back to the Good Divorce Show. I am Karen McNenny, your Good Divorce Coach, celebrating you today for taking time to get educated, to learn how to be a divorced family, not just how to get divorced. That we've been doing for years. We're here to educate and help you to learn how to live across two homes. And today our conversation is with Jennifer Delliquadri, who has spent a lot of time speaking about educating, researching the adolescent brain, the adolescent experience. She is the host of the podcast Subtle Shifts. Welcome back to the show, Jennifer.
So glad to be here.
You and I, during the break, were having a mom-to-mom connection around our children who are neurodivergent and the discovery of this really during the pandemic when kids were doing school at our kitchen table. And for me, that was a huge wake up of, oh my gosh, I'm really seeing how my child is learning, where they're struggling and wondering, how do you do this every day in school? At which point my son said, it's really hard. And then we started to intervene. And of course, that was, a conversation that I then needed to explore with his father, who was not in the same home at the same time, seeing the same things. So unpack a little bit for us what you discovered during that time in your family and what that can teach those of us that are families living across two homes.
Oh, there are so many things that I learned. When you have a child, there are preconceived ideas of what it's going to be like, and definitely ideas of how adolescence will look. And often we base it upon our experience of adolescence. And so what happened, probably for both of us at that time, is we were around our kids more often.
Yes.
And in different ways than we had been before. So where they spent the majority of their day at school and their academic time was with other people, it was now under our roof, which made it a little more apparent.
Yes.
The things that they were struggling with.
Yes.
Yes. So as you mentioned, both of my daughters are neurodivergent. One has severe OCD and the other is on the autism spectrum. And I've learned so much about how to meet my child where she is and give her the support that she needs. And for me, that's all about parenting the child you have versus the child you thought you would have.
Can you just say that again?
Expectations means parenting the child you have, not the child you thought you would have.
Or that you wish you had.
Yeah. And this is again said with no judgment, because we all want what's best for our kids. And we also all have an idea of what that means. And so in our minds, it's based upon what we learned growing up, what success means, what it means to be successful. And for us, I know for me specifically, it was you go to high school, you go to college, you get a job, then you get married, you buy a house, and then you have kids. Like that is the pathway that's laid out in front of you. And if you can check all of those boxes, you have succeeded. And then you get into the pandemic where everything's kind of thrown up in the air. Nothing is as it was. Everything changed and everything shifted, to use my business name. And how are you at shifting with it? How are you at shifting with these awarenesses, these changes, these transitions? And how do you let it impact you? And the more you grasp onto what you think you need or what you think you want, the more struggle there can be, which is when you're able to release and go with the flow a little bit more. Again, parenting the child that's in front of you and meeting the needs that they have, the more grace and ease there will be. And so to come from two parents, right? You've got two parents, two ideals, two different completely expectations of what success means, and the parent and the child and what I thought I had. And there can be a disconnect. But I like to imagine in parenting that you and your co-parent think of it as a shape of a triangle. You and your co-parent are the base of the triangle, holding up your child up to the top of the triangle, and it's a nice foundational structure. And to imagine that instead of me versus you, how can we work together to lift our child up and meet the needs that they have?
Mhm. And that means that consistent communication and kind of the download. And parents, if you don't have a regular habit of connecting, and then maybe that's because you came through a dumpster fire of divorce and communication got really eroded during that process. And it might just be that your boundaries are such that you don't have regular communication. I like to see parents behave in the same way when it comes to their kids as when they were intact. When I hear a thing from the kid that I would want to share with that parent, whether it's, look at the amazing flip they did today at the ski hill, and I took a video, I'm going to send that to the other parent to share. And the child knows that their life is integrated across both homes. But it also might be, hey, I sat down to write a term paper today with our child, and I was flabbergasted by the experience that I had. And here's why. I'm wondering if we should set aside some time to talk more about this. Because as you said, that base foundation, we are going to have different experiences and observations of our children in both homes, but to keep them isolated and siloed does not benefit the child. We need to integrate all the information in order to give them as much support as possible.
Exactly. Yeah. And communication really is the foundation for all of that. Effective communication, and not just about the challenges, but about the good things too, just as you mentioned.
Yeah. Let's highlight a little bit of your work around transitions that you're doing primarily with women, but it goes across both sides of the gender spectrum of all of us facing these significant transitions. And in terms of, again, either a tool that you use with your clients or a framework within their mindset around walking through the transitions that we get excited about and those that we want to resist.
Yeah, so I have created a method called the subtle shifts method, and it basically lays out 3 phases of transitions. So the first phase is what I mentioned at the very beginning of the episode, where you are feeling a need or a call to make a change. We've all been there, where something feels a little off, or there feels like there could be something more. Something is calling you forward. And at that point, you have a choice to get curious and explore it, to answer the call or to not. If you choose to answer the call, thus begins the beginning of the transformation. And the next part of the method is what I like to call the cocoon phase, which is where you're kind of doing the work. It's mostly internal. People may not see it so much from the outside. There may be some shifts on the outside, but you're learning about yourself. It's a time for exploration. It's a time for growth, managing your relationships, evaluating what is, and making decisions about what you want to continue, and making space for something that's new, letting go of things that no longer serve you. And the cocoon phase feels really chaotic. Things are kind of getting thrown up in the air. A lot of it feels out of control, but it can also feel really purposeful. So even if it feels chaotic, that doesn't mean that anything has gone wrong. And during this part of the phase, there is still a call to go back to the old, to the known. Like, even though I didn't really want it, or even though it's not really where I'm wanting to go, it feels safe. And it's because it's the known. Once you can break through that pull to go back and continue the work and to continue to learn and grow, there's a moment where you're entering phase 3, and there's no parade for it. There's no like alert or award. It's just you're suddenly there, and you're able to look back and think, whoa, things have really changed. And I am now in this new kind of iteration of my life experience. And this is where the external changes happen. Maybe people start to notice there's a difference, or something has changed. You have a new job, you have left a relationship, whatever it is that's happened. That's the phase 3, and there's consistency there. You're continuing the practices that you had in phase 2, but you are a different person on the inside than you were when you started.
Yes. I have heard, I'm not a biologist, but I believe it to be true that literally when our butterflies, our moths go into chrysalis, into that cocoon, they go to goo. Like it's a total goo. Like everything you knew before and the structure literally metamorphically just turns to this gooey, like you said, loss, chaos. There's no structure. Where are we going? And then growth comes from that.
Yeah.
And the other part of that metaphor that comes to mind that makes me think about my kids in preschool was the teachers would always say, try like a butterfly. And they would be struggling with their tennis shoes or their coats and getting their hats on and working zippers. And as a parent, I'm an overparent parent. You talk about this, the overparenting, the underparenting. I just want to do it all for them, in part because I'm impatient and I got to get going and I'm usually running late. So come on, zip up your coat, get your shoes on. But those beautiful preschool teachers, they would just let a child just be in their struggle, learning how to make the laces work, learning how the zipper works, giving them support, giving them love, but try like a butterfly. And we know that if someone comes up to a cocoon and breaks it open to let that butterfly out, that butterfly is not going to fly. Mm-hmm. You in the transformation, you got to go through it. And it's the pushing out of that cocoon that then pushes this liquid and into the wings so that they fully become able to fly. And if you skip over even the hard parts, and the reality is we think we can, but you can't. And when I'm working with clients like, I just don't know, I'm ever going to get through this. I got to get through this. Like, you got to go through it. Mm-hmm. You actually have to push through what feels so hard and uncertain and unstable in order to come out the other side.
Yeah.
Do you see some similar steps with your clients of transformation?
Yeah. And the struggle is what creates the transformation. There are so many great things that come of it, but a willingness to step into the struggle and to look at yourself, to learn, to go through the challenge is what gives you the strength and the resiliency to become the next evolution of yourself.
Oh, that is just beautiful and inspiring. We are having a really rich conversation today with Jennifer Delliquadri. And Jennifer, will you just remind our listeners today where they can find you, more of your wisdom and resources, and if people want to work with you alongside their divorce transition, what could they expect?
Well, you can find me at jenniferdelliquadri.com. I also have a podcast called Subtle Shifts with Jennifer Delliquadri. You can find all the information you'll need from both of those resources and also continue to learn and sign up for a consultation if you want to learn more about working together.
Wonderful. Thank you for bringing your wisdom today to the Good Divorce Show.
Thank you for having me.
And listeners, I just want again to recognize the time and commitment that you're making to invest in your own personal growth and knowledge around the journey of a good divorce. And remembering that is one of your options. It does not have to end up in court. It does not have to end up as the dumpster fire that we so often hear about. You have choices. And in also remembering, if you're in the heat of it and you're really struggling, I just want you to know everything will be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end.
Thanks for listening. Do you have questions or thoughts about this week's episode? Let us know by following the Good Divorce Coach on Facebook and Instagram at Good Divorce Coach, and leave a comment. And be sure to tune in every Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific or listen anytime wherever you get your podcasts.